So this is the first response to anti-Semitism, is Jewish unity and Jewish prayer. And yes, we have to find a president, we have to find an individual amongst those 70 wolves or 70 lions that will listen to our plea and listen to our problems and perhaps advocate on our behalf. But that.
This is Christopher John Bjerknes. It is March 18th, 2024, and PURIM is rapidly approaching. It'll be sunset Saturday, March 23rd to sunset Sunday, March 24th. The Jewish day begins at sunset because their God is a God of darkness, and they worship darkness and the moon. There is presently a genocide taking place in the Gaza Strip in Palestine, and it is being perpetrated by the Israelis. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that he is waging war on the Amalekites. The Jewish war on the Amalekites is a war of extermination. This is proven by 1 Samuel chapter 15, Deuteronomy, and Exodus, among other passages. There are 3 mitzvot of the 613 commandments, which command the Jewish people to wage war of extermination on the Amalekites in each generation. And in the generation of Esther, the crypto-Jew Hadassah, who changed her name to Esther so that she could marry the king of Persia and commit genocide against the Amalekites, is celebrated on the Jewish festival of Purim, and that is the Jews' favorite holiday. They get ridiculously drunk on strong alcohol, which usually is vodka. So they get so drunk, they try to get so drunk that they can't even speak anymore. They commit a fetish ritual of eating Haman's ears, a cannibalistic fetish ritual in which they believe they are eating Haman's ears in the form of little triangular-shaped pastries, triangle like as above, so below in the Magen David. And they hang Haman, who was the chief of the Amalekites, who was supposedly plotting against the Jewish people in the Persian Empire, and they hang him and his 10 sons in effigy, and they beat him with sticks and abuse his corpse in all kinds of ways. And it's really a sick holiday celebrating genocide. The genocide of the Amalekites, much like Hanukkah, is a holiday celebrating the genocide by the Maccabees of the Greek people. So this holiday is coming up, and it relates directly to the genocide taking place in Gaza and in the West Bank of the Palestinians, whom Netanyahu and many Israelis and Jews around the world have referred to as Amalekites. And again, they're commanded to completely exterminate the Amalekites, and they celebrate and commemorate this commandment on the Jewish holiday of Purim. Now, Purim teaches them many lessons. One of those lessons is to infiltrate the governments of the 70 nations of the Gentiles, and to find an especially important advocate among those nations, in this case it's the United States, to sponsor their genocide of the Amalekites. And you can see that the United States is speaking up in the UN and in NATO for Israel, and is preventing any efforts to generate a ceasefire and to impose any kinds of sanctions on Israel to stop this genocide, and it is the U.S. is supplying military support for the genocide. It is threatening all other nations that might otherwise intervene against this genocide. And this is all in accord with the Jewish traditions of how they perpetrate the extermination of the Amalekites, how they commit genocide against Amalek. And ultimately, Amalek is all human beings on the face of the earth. This is simply a part of their messianic stage where they have to exterminate the Amalekites, build the temple, and anoint their Messiah. And an interesting thing about the book of Esther is that one of their plans is that when the Messiah arrives, all the books of the prophets from the Tanakh will no longer be read and will basically be trashed. But the book of Esther will remain, and every holiday on Purim, they read from the book of Esther, and that will continue in the Messianic era, despite the fact that all the other books of the prophets will be dismissed. So this is a very important series of events that are taking place, and this festival of Purim is key to understanding what's going on. So we had this crypto-Jewess Esther who married King Ahasuerus, who was the emperor of the Persian Empire, and her uncle Mordecai and Esther plotted against Haman, and eventually Haman was warning the Persian king that the Jewish people followed their own gods and followed their own laws and would be disloyal to him. And Mordecai and Esther set up a plot to flip that script on Haman, and they hanged Haman and they hanged his 10 sons. They reperformed this ritual in Nuremberg by hanging 10 top Nazis, and they referred it to the hanging of Haman's sons. When Julius Streicher was hanged, he called it Purim Fest, 1946, I believe. And they committed, in their mythologies, they committed genocide against 70,000 people. And they celebrate this genocide on Purim. And we have Ivanka Trump being called Queen Esther, and we have President Biden acting as the advocate for Israel and protecting Israel during this genocide, supplying the weaponry, the bombs to drop on babies and slaughter tens of thousands of Palestinian children. Ultimately, they want to kill a couple million, and they're going to do it if they're not stopped. And another part of this mythology is the myth that Gentiles bear a genetic hatred of Jews, and this genetic hatred is most dense in the Kelly pot of Amalek. Amalek has the strongest evil inclination, is the worst of the other side, is descended from Esau. And so they believe that all Gentiles have this blood of Esau, and it's most concentrated in Amalek, and that they bear this genetic hatred. But that's a form of scapegoating Gentiles for the Jewish hatred of Gentiles, which came first. And they don't want to admit that Gentiles are acting in self-defense. They want to instead say that the Jews have the right to preemptive self-defense to exterminate Amalek, because Amalek seeks to exterminate them, so that if someone is coming to assassinate you in the afternoon, you assassinate them in the morning as a preemptive strike. And they never concede the fact that actually the inverse is true, that they have always planned to exterminate the Gentiles. And they created this mythology to provide a justification and an incentive for them to exterminate the Gentiles. And of course, Gentiles who are aware of this and who are enduring this perpetual attack, they make it a perpetual attack. They say it's a war of extermination from generation to generation. Those who respond to it are called haters because they are acting in self-defense. But they're not haters. They're simply trying to keep the Jewish people from exterminating them as the Jewish people's ancestors commanded the Jewish people to do. So it's a lie, and it's a means of scapegoating. It's a means of scapegoating the Gentiles by calling them genetically haters, when in fact it was the Jewish people from their roots who hated Gentiles and set about to exterminate Gentiles. And this mythology carries on to the present day, and you'll often hear Jewish people reacting to criticism of Israel and disproportionate Jewish influence in banking, media, government, academia, its business, Wall Street, the stock exchange, the treasury, monetary systems, etc. They'll say that Gentiles are just jealous of their success. And some people may mistake that as a modern phenomena, but that also has its roots in the Torah and the Tanakh, and in especially the Talmud. And they have always said, since at least the Talmud, and this is probably much older than the Talmud, that Gentiles are jealous of Jews because the Gentiles were offered the Torah but rejected it, and the Jews accepted it on Mount Sinai. And their reward for accepting the Torah on Mount Sinai is that they get to inherit all the property of the Gentiles. And the Gentiles are jealous of the Jews for accepting the Torah and want to take away the light that the Jews are giving them of the Torah from the Jewish people. And that's why Gentiles supposedly hate Jews, is because they're jealous. And I'll show you that. That's in the Talmud in Shabbat 89a to 89b. And we'll go over that a little bit. So they have all these mythologies to scapegoat Gentiles for their hatred of Gentiles and try to falsely portray Gentiles as genetically hateful and as inherently jealous of the Jews, because the Jews accepted the Torah and because the Gentiles are the children of Satan, the Amalekites, the Kelipot of the evil Sitra Achra, the other side, the counter universe to holiness. And that since the Gentiles are jealous, as Esau was jealous of Jacob when Jacob stole Esau's birthright, and their father Isaac blessed Esau to become the slave and the mercenary soldier for Israel, for Jacob. Jacob was also a crypto Jew who put on goat skin to imitate Esau. All of these themes recur throughout Judaism again and again. So what they do is they try to subvert at least one, the main military power in the world at the time, with a crypto Jewess, like, she's not a crypto Jewess anymore, but like Queen Esther, Ivanka Trump. And you can see that Ivanka Trump is nicknamed a savior, Jewish Queen Esther, who stopped the annihilation of Jews by Jared Kushner's synagogue. And it's not just the Trumps, it's also the Bidens and everybody in power in the American government. Almost all of them are sponsoring this genocide. So let's listen again to what Rabbi Aaron L. Raskin said in his presentation, PURIM, the Kabbalah of Anti-Semitism, about this use. First, the Jews unify, as they did under Mordecai and Esther, and then they subvert the government of one of the 70 nations, preferably the chief government of the 70 nations, who are considered part of the satanic other side of the Gentiles. And they utilize that military power and that advocacy by this subverted Gentile nations to sponsor their destruction of the Amalekites in the present day. It is clearly the United States sponsoring the Israeli genocide of the Palestinian people. That's what I say. That's not what Rabbi Raskin says. So listen to how he describes, and I believe correctly describes, the message of Purim, the message of the book of Esther.
And uniting as one. So this is the first response to anti-Semitism. It was the prayers, it was the fasting, it was the Jewish people coming together and uniting as one. So this is the first response to anti-Semitism. It's Jewish unity and Jewish prayer, and yes, we have to find a president, we have to find an individual amongst those 70 wolves or 70 lions that will listen to our plea and listen to our problems and perhaps advocate on our behalf. But that.
So you heard it from the rabbi. He has the Tanya in the background, so he's probably a Chabad Lubavitch rabbi. And if we look at the Babylonian Talmud, in this case, it's the William Davidson translation of the Babylonian Talmud in Tractate Shabbat, folio 89a to 89b. It describes this mythology that they created to scapegoat Gentiles for their genocidal hatred of Gentiles by claiming that Gentiles are jealous of the fact that they rejected the Torah and it was given to the Jews on Mount Sinai, and Jews were also blessed. It's not in this passage that talks about that, but others, blessed to inherit all the property of the Gentiles, which is why you have the Marxists and the WEF saying that we are going to lose all of our property to the Jewish elite, and ultimately all property belongs to the king in not only the Jewish political system, but in many monarchies, all the property belongs to the king. The king of the Jews is to rule the entire earth, and therefore all the property of the earth belongs ultimately to the Jewish king Messiah. So the Talmud says, one of the sages said to Rabbi Kahana, "Did you hear what is the reason that the mountain was called Mount Sinai?" That's where they received the Torah. Rabbi Kahana said to him, "It is because it is a mountain upon which miracles were performed for the Jewish people." The sage said to him, "If so, it should have been called Mount Nisai, the mountain of miracles." Rather, Rabbi Kahana said to him, "It is a mountain that was a good omen for the Jewish people." The sage said to him, "If so, it should have been called Har Simanai, the mountain of omens." Rabbah, son of Rabbi Huna, both said, "What is the reason it is called Mount Sinai?" "It is because it is a mountain upon which hatred for the nations of the world descended because they did not accept the Torah." And this is universally accepted by the rabbinical class as meaning jealousy. It is the hatred and the jealousy that Gentiles supposedly bears towards the Jews, which provides the pretext for them to commit preemptive genocide against all Gentiles. And that is what Rabbi Yosei, son of Rabbi Hanina, said. The desert in which Israel remained for 40 years has 5 names. Each name has a source and a rationale. The Zin Desert, because the Jewish people were commanded in it. The Kadesh Desert, because the Jewish people were sanctified in it. The Kedemat Desert, because the ancient Keduma Torah, which preceded the world, was given in it. The Paran Desert, because the Jewish people were fruitful and multiplied in it. The Sinai Desert, because hatred descended upon the nations of the world on it. Again, this mythology that Gentiles inherently hate Jews and are jealous of Jews, on the mountain on which the Jewish people received the Torah. And what is the mountain's true name? Horeb is its name, and that disputes the opinion of Rabbi Abuha. As Rabbi Abuha said, Mount Sinai is its name. And why is it called Mount Horeb? It is because destruction of the nations of the world descended upon it. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It is in fact not that the Gentiles are jealous of the Jews, and it is not that the evil blood of Esau and Esau's anger at Jacob for stealing his birthrights and blessings by imitating him as the first crypto Jew and putting on goatskins of the sacrificial scapegoat and stealing his future from their father Isaac. Esau was the firstborn, should have inherited the blessings and birthright of both the present world, Olam Hazeh, and the world to come, Olam Haba. None of that has anything to do with it. It's instead the fact that it is because of the destruction of the nations of the world descended upon Mount Horeb, meaning that the Jews in their Torah, which was given to them on Mount Sinai, plotted the complete extermination of all Gentile peoples. So clearly, Gentile peoples have a right to defend themselves from a genocidal enemy, as the Jews presume to do. But it's the Jews who instigate the war and make it a war of complete extermination commanded by their gods and set about to exterminate the Gentiles. And that is made clear by that commandment that descended of the destruction of the Gentile peoples. And they presume that they were attacked by the Amalekites as the first nation, which exposed the vulnerability of Israel to attack. So they have to completely exterminate the Amalekites as a warning to all others that Jews are not vulnerable. And that's what they're doing in Gaza. They are sending a message to the entire world that you have no defense, that we will find a country like the United States. If the United States abandons Israel, they'll take on Russia, they'll take on China, they'll throw nuclear bombs at all the human beings around the world, which is the current plan. And they'll find another nation to sponsor them. And ultimately, when all the 70 nations are destroyed down to that last one, they'll kill and betray that last one that helped to enthrone them. And they believe they have the right to do that because they believe that there were 4 grand empires which always were greater than the Jewish empire, the Babylonian, Persian, Greeks, and Romans. Now it is the Romans of America who are serving as their advocate. They want Persia to lure America into a self-destructive war, just as Persia did to Babylon. So the Second Empire will destroy not only the first, but also the fourth, the Roman Empire, and help them to rebuild their temple. But once the Persians do that, as the Persian king Ahasuerus helped Esther to commit genocide against the Amalekites and Haman, and just as King Cyrus, the Persian king, now being played by Donald Trump, helped the Jewish people to defeat the Babylonians and to build the second temple and restore the first temple and go back to Jerusalem and restore themselves in Jerusalem from the Babylonian exile. They now want to leave the Roman exile of becoming Edomites in the West and in Europe and in Western nations. And they want their Messiah to use the Persian Empire once again to lure the Roman Empire, the Fourth Empire, into destroying itself. And then once the Persians do that, they will ultimately betray the Persians. They believe they have the right to do this because the Persians have no right to be the preeminent empire. and they will kill off all the Persians, and then all their work will be done, and they will enter this new grand world to come, Olam Haba, and their king Messiah will rule over 600,000 androgynous androgynes. All those 600,000 souls come from the Kabbalistic Adam Kadmon, and the Guf, the well of the souls, the world soul of the Jewish people. And then the world will be perfected. Their work of Tikkun Olam, rectifying the world, will be complete. So right now, we are in the phase when they are doing the three things commanded by the Sanhedrin, Folio 20b, of exterminating the Amalekites, building their house for their God, the third temple, and anointing their Messiah. But they will continue, if they succeed in the Messianic era, to read the genocidal script, the cannibalistic script of the book of Esther, even in the Messianic age, just as they're about to do commencing sunset March 23rd, this coming Saturday, during their festival of Purim. My heart bleeds for the Palestinian people. I wish I could do more to help them. I've been trying to persuade people that we can call our congressman, as Reverend Ted Pike used to do. We still have our freedom of speech because the good Reverend Ted Pike used to wage campaigns to counter the ADL and other forces calling for hate crimes laws to take away our freedom of speech, and it was tremendously successful. We likely would not have free speech any longer in the United States by the government order if Ted Pike had not committed himself and endured all kinds of abuse and had these campaigns of call-ins to all the people in Congress. And he would post lists of the telephone numbers and emails, etc., of the people in Congress. And he persuaded thousands of people to swamp the telephone system of the Congress with pleas to not vote for this hate crimes legislation. He provided an erudite script for people to read off when they made these calls. And it was highly successful, and it will be highly successful if we could persuade thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people to call all the members of Congress and demand that the United States end its advocacy as chief of the 70 nations, the lions and the wolves of the evil other side, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the Kelipot, the shells, that supposedly want to exterminate the Jewish people, even though the chief nation of them is always subverted to become the advocate and help the Jews to exterminate the Gentile people. Again, it's complete inversion and projection. And it's their war against all of us. It's not our war against them. So act in self-defense, not by hurting people, but by organizing politically. It would be great if the top influencers would help to call Congress for Gaza and help to end this gross, inhumane, genocidal slaughter of the Palestinians, which foreshadows the complete extermination of non-Jewish humanity and the conversion of Jewish people into the chimera of androgynous, immortal homunculi grown large in new glass alchemistic vessels that they're setting up, and they're setting up to kill us all off. And one of the things that we have to do to hedge and to prevent this and stop this progression of events that are forecast in their plans and so-called prophecies, which have always been their plans, is to end this genocide in Gaza. I also call upon all influencers and everyone else to expose the fact that Purim and Hanukkah are festivals of genocide and the very bizarre rituals that they perform on Purim of eating Haman's ears, of hanging people in effigy, of reading the book of Esther, of celebrating the slaughter of 70,000 people, because those 70,000, just like the Palestinians, represent all of us, and their goal is ultimately to kill us all off. Let's have a look. These little pastries I'm talking about represents Haman, the Amalekite in the Purim story. In Hebrew, Haman Tashin are also known as Oznei Haman, meaning Haman's ears. Haman's ears also refer to a Sephardic Purim pastry. So again, they have this weird fetish cannibalistic ritual of eating Haman's ears. I'd like to thank my donors, Carolus, Norbert, Umberto, Gregory, Bob, Lance, Basma, Angelina, Jerry, Jeannie, Barry, Ali, Ryan, Carolina, Anisha, Kelly, Mark, Robert, Kevin, Gary, Elton, John Garaitis, Paul, Oliver, Wilson, George, and Alan Greenspun. I greatly appreciate your help. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. Anyone who would like to contribute, you'll find links in the description of this video, and also primarily at my website, cjbbooks.com. You can also find my books at cjbbooks.com. I was the one who brought the attention of this war against the Amalekites to the world in my book, 2005, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein. And then I especially emphasized it in my book of 2006, The Jewish Genocide of Armenian Christians. Jews had, from the 800s onwards, at least been calling Armenians Amalekites and committed genocide against the Armenian people in the Ottoman Empire, just as they are doing today against the Palestinians, whom they also refer to as Amalekites. And again, this is ultimately to represent all of us. And I have a revised and greatly updated and expanded, enlarged version of that in my book, Forbidden History of the Armenian Holocaust, which you can find at my website, cjbbooks.com. And in that book, I have all kinds of references and passages to this plan to exterminate the Amalekites. They are also waging genocide against the Armenians. They had their ally in Azerbaijan take over the region of Nagorno-Karabakh, referred to as by the Armenians as Artsakh. They are threatening the Sinic province that they refer to as the Zangezur Corridor, and the Israelis' ally, Azerbaijan. Israel has military bases and airstrips in Azerbaijan to attack both the Armenians and the Iranians, the Persians, like King Ahasuerus, like King Cyrus. They're going to betray those Persians. And one of the things they're trying to set up is the extermination of the Armenians with the assistance of the Azeris, and then their attack on the Persian people who are allied with the Armenians against this insanity. They also want to bring that about, and they want Azerbaijan to serve as their beachhead in that region to attack both the Armenians and the Persians as part of this very ancient plan that they're going to celebrate this Purim. So when you hear about all these festivals of Purim and you influencers get out there and expose this, they are celebrating in the modern context the extermination of the Palestinians in Gaza and the extermination of the Armenian people. They have the Azeris calling the Armenians Western Azerbaijan. I want to thank you all for watching. I again want to thank my sponsors, and I'll see all you good people next time. Take care, be well, and if we can kick it off, if we can get some top influencers to make this serious, I have been doing it, but let's get people to call the Congress and get the American government to not be the 70th nation that sponsors this genocide, that provides the military aid, that provides the military intimidation, that advocates for Israel's genocide in the UN and in NATO and in the American Congress and by the president and his staff, et cetera, et cetera. Let's demand that all that stop, and let's start to take control of our own government and become players in our own government. Bye for now. I'll see you all next time.